This is The Professionals, a podcast by music business technology and broadcast media technology students on Outcast OCCR Owens Community College Radio. In this series, students will interview industry professionals in their respective fields to help gather an idea of what it's like to work in their industry.
My name is Dominic Serrato. Welcome to the podcast. I'm speaking with George Martin, who is the senior replay technician for the Atlanta Braves for Major League Baseball.
Thanks for having me on, Dominic.
What would you say is the moment that you knew that you wanted to be a part of this industry professionally?
I don't think I had a moment or an actual plan. I started through radio and then through a tour one day of a TV station, my first time in a station. I was overheard talking to my talent for my radio show that I was looking to expand, and the gentleman asked me to put in a resume, and next thing you know, I was a production assistant working for a local TV station there in the Toledo market. It was through grooming from that moment, I guess. I was enamored with all the things you could do. It just grew and grew and grew until it's, almost 30 years now.
What would you say is the kind of educational background that brought you into this line of work?
Well, I do suggest to everybody to learn as much as you can. It can be through telecommunications or media, but just have a diverse background, and most colleges will almost force you to do that. You need to have writing ability. You need to have social media skills. You need to be able to obviously do video production or television production, depending on where you end up landing. But the bigger thing is it's more than just the technical. It's who you are and how you interact with other companies, other people. That is probably most important in my eyes.
I'm glad you said that, because thinking about that being more than the technical aspect, which can be achieved through practice, what would you say, if you could envelop in your own words what the kind of mindset you need to work in this industry and in your job specifically, how would you word it?
I think it's the same as most. It can be extremely fun. It can be extremely difficult. Some days it's the best job in the world, and some days you'll get frustrated beyond belief. And I think that goes for any job. But specifically towards television, I think you have to try to learn as much as you can. And whatever you do, just keep asking questions. Don't just come in and say, well, I understand how to edit video. I've been doing it since I was 12. Let the people that are there tell you some of the little extras. You might be able to teach them as well. It should be a give and take kind of situation.
As far as experiences, what kind of experiences would you recommend someone my age in college to experience in order to have a better understanding of what is required to prepare for this role in the industry?
It depends on where you're wanting to end up. Obviously, if you're in media or in television or broadcast like I am, you're going to go one direction. If you're a camera person, you might focus on the technical aspects of the camera, and you might want to know more about how it works or shot composition. And if you're a producer, you want to be more involved with knowing who or what you're producing to. If it's television news, how long do you have your audience for before they tune out? If you're making a 30-second commercial, how do you get your information across in 30 seconds and yet still grip them or make them want to go look for more information? Whatever it is just ask questions and just keep trying to learn.
When you talk about taking opportunities to learn, a lot of opportunities that you get, I've heard, are made available by saying yes to things and being open to new experiences. I wanted to know if there were any kind of situations within your career you can remember where that was the case, where you had to say yes to something and it ended up allowing you to grow.
I have a perfect example. I'm from Toledo, Ohio. I currently live in Atlanta, Georgia. I had no intention of ever leaving the Toledo market. Was very happy there. Was headhunted by a woman here in Atlanta who had a auto racing show, and she needed a producer for her. She heard of another show I was doing, another auto racing show at the time, And she called me and said, "Hey, how'd you like to work for me?" And I said, "Sure, as long as I can do it from Toledo." To make a long story short, I interviewed with her. 6 months went by. Obviously, a lot of self-doubt. I didn't get the job. Oh, well, but I wasn't planning on moving anyway. Kind of goes through your mind. But then she offered me the job, and before I had a chance to say no, I did exactly what you just mentioned. I said yes, and 32 days later, I moved from Toledo, Ohio to Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm still here. That's been 17 years ago.
Wow, that's a pretty big step.
In television, you have to do that. You have to be willing to move depending upon what you're doing. There are some jobs that you'll fly to or drive to. There are some that you have to relocate. Television news is huge in relocating and climbing the ladder of the different markets. Same with editing and stuff like that. So you have to be willing to move a lot of times, although things are starting to change where the work from home can happen. And there are some companies that will allow that, but for the most part, you got to be willing to take the chance and to move if need be.
That actually kind of reinforces the idea that I've been hearing is say yes to things and be open to new experiences to learn.
I totally agree with that.
Talking about new experiences and taking opportunities, I wanted to know what style of networking and making connections would you say that in your experience has been most beneficial to your career? Is it more of you have to go out hunting for people and trying to find people who recognize what you have to offer, or is it more of you work on your own thing and people start to recognize you based on what you produced?
Well, you got to take into consideration when I started and as opposed to where things are today. For example, social media, LinkedIn is a big factor now, and a lot of employers use it, and a lot of people use it for networking. It is a tremendous tool for networking. I wish I was better at it. But the idea is that's one way, is to get industry connections and follow blogs and follow podcasts like this one here. Keep up on the pulse of what's going on and what you hear for the industry that you're looking to get into. So that's one way. We didn't have that when I was starting out. You made networking by working hard and having people take notice of what you did. And when they did another job or they led a crew, they asked to have you on the crew. You ask questions. You do everything you can to be a good ambassador for the job that you're doing, and you do it the best you can. And then you get to know people, your Rolodex gets bigger. Next thing you know, you're getting phone calls to be on commercial shoots or editing different things for different corporations or whatever it is that your genre and where you end up landing should be. You'll find that the doors will start to open. But the big thing is, like you said, say yes, be open, and just do the best job you can. But ask lots of questions and absorb as much as you can.
I was actually going off of that when you talked about how the new ways versus the old ways, LinkedIn and actually like working and making connections that way. I was wondering, has one sort of overshadowed the other in your experience, or are they both kind of on the same level?
Those of us that have been doing it a long time or a longer time, obviously we're overshadowed by your generation when it comes to the social media, the LinkedIns and the profiles. I mean, we know how to use our phones because we have to for our jobs now, but you guys are professionals at it. You guys can go through and tell me what's going on at the blink of an eye, and that's a great skill to have, and people do look for that. But I caution people on what they post on their social media because employers do look at it. There are moratoriums on things that you can and cannot do once you get certain jobs. There are certain things I cannot comment on or do in social media. Being good at LinkedIn or any social media site is a huge positive. There are people that have full careers, as you know, just using social media. So that's one. But I've always been a knock on the door, pick up the phone, do a good job, shake somebody's hand, do a good job working with them on your crew, take down their contact information, and do it face to face. That's what works best for me. That's what I grew up in. I personally could do a better job on LinkedIn and some of the other sites.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I was wondering if one had more impact on the other.
Yeah, I think it depends on where you start and where your strengths are. My strength was not in social media. My strength is not in the that kind of a setup. Mine is on the job training.
Right.
OTJ is the strongest form of getting to know. There's book smart and there's street smart. Which are you, and can you be a nice mix of both? For me, it's been on the job training and meeting people. For somebody like yourself or a younger generation, it possibly could be social media and the LinkedIns and stuff like that.
That's insightful. Thank you.
Sitting right on the fence, aren't I?
No. It's good because it shows that you can have different things can work for different people. So I
think everybody's path will fall based on what they know, who they know, what they how they try. The bigger thing is you're gonna fail. Just get up and keep going. It's okay.
Okay.
Learn from it. With every failure, every scientist had a failure, and they learned from the failure. So it's the same thing in what we do. If something doesn't go your way, say, okay, try to figure out why, how you can do it better next time. But whatever you do, don't doubt yourself. Just keep moving forward.
All right. Thank you for that. I was actually I'm glad you mentioned that because going into my next question was going to be when it comes to self-doubt or experiences of failure, like you said, what would you say? I know you said to keep going and persevering through it because eventually you'll figure it out. What would you say are the sort of things that kind of helped you persevere through any moments like that?
Just don't do it alone. Our biggest self-doubter is ourselves. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense, but we are the ones that doubt ourselves. If you've done a good job, your employer, the people on your crew, they'll take notice. I mentioned, when I interviewed to move down here to Atlanta, it was 6 months from the time I actually interviewed till I got the job. I just picked up another who will be doing Major League Soccer in the spring, and that one was almost 6 months between the time I interviewed and the time somebody offered me a position. There's always self-doubt. Just believe in yourself, will yourself to do better, and know you are the best candidate or that you are a capable candidate. And just keep learning, and you will find the path that you want.
All right. Thank you for sharing that. That was actually really helpful. Sometimes I experience that kind of doubt in my mind, and knowing that you can make it through that is it's impactful. So
I think that goes with anything in life, don't you? I mean, if we got down on ourselves every time something didn't go our way, we might as well just wrap ourselves in bubble wrap and sit at home. Some of the best and honestly the most wealthy people in the country and in the world fell down several times. And if they doubted themselves each time, we wouldn't have computers. We wouldn't have electric cars. These are people that said, you know what, I'll find another way. And that's the other thing that we need to do is no matter what your path is, every time you find a closed door, find the open window. Just keep trying, keep learning, and don't be discouraged if you get some no's. Whatever it is that you choose, just try to learn as much as you can about it. If you're not sure what you want to do, experience as much as you can. It's better to find out what you don't like and then find out what you really enjoy. If you don't like something, you're not going to want to do it. And you won't want to get up each morning, especially in television, where sometimes you're getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning to be to work by 4. Or you work a 16 or a 17-hour day because the game, for me, a game went long. And you don't get to go home until things are done. You just got to keep on doing, basically, and just keep going. But
Right.
Find out what you really enjoy. And once you find that, then you can get through anything. I love my job and hope I get to do it until I can't do it anymore.
I hope to experience the same experience as you, to find...
You got a great start. Keep going.
What would you say that the most educational experience you've had in your career? Maybe it was something like you said where you had a failure or you got beaten down with something. but then you learned from it and it helped you in future situations?
The most educational or the biggest experience?
I would say the most educational. Like what got you to realize, oh, I can, like, maybe there was a moment where you didn't know something and you were trying to learn it, and then you had like a eureka moment where you kind of
the epiphany where it all makes sense.
Maybe not all of it, but maybe like an aspect of it where it's like, oh, okay, I can do this from now on, maybe.
In my industry, I mean, that happens frequently, several times during a baseball season. There's new technologies that come out. In my career, was there a moment that it all kind of made sense? Early on, I'd have to say, when I mentioned being a production assistant, and that's how I got into television, I would ask questions. I got to know the technical directors, the guys punching the buttons. The directors would make calls of MEs and different things, and I didn't have any idea what that was. So I started asking the directors what it meant, and then I had the technical directors show me what it meant to them when they built it. And I could start putting the pieces to this puzzle together to the point I knew when I heard the director make a call, I knew exactly what was going to happen based on this terminology that you might learn, but until you experience it, you really don't know. And then, a year and a half later, I was directing shows myself. So, and you just kept learning until I was directing the 6 o'clock news in Toledo, Ohio. And then from there, it just keeps, it escalates and escalates. But it all comes from learning from each experience. And then when you don't know, at least me, I'm known as Curious George, even to my current boss. Ask questions, learn, be a sponge, and just constantly be open to learning new things.
A follow-up to that is, so the guy who's the PA on set, who kind of like asks questions and kind of puts his nose into like what's going on with in the field that he wants to get into, that guy actually gets attention and some sort of training.
A production assistant is sort of like an entry-level job.
Yeah.
Whether it be on a broadcast, we have production assistants that will work for the crewing firms for a baseball game, and they're grunts. They carry cables.
Yep.
They will work with a camera person. They'll help build a set. You could be asked to do any number of things. But in doing those things, you start to learn what you like and, like I mentioned, what you don't like. And you say, hey, I don't want to do this. You know what? I really want to be in front of the camera.
Right.
So you start working with trying to work as a reporter or being a production assistant for a reporter or talent. You'll find what's there. But the production assistant job is that entry-level job. Television news, it was the person that was on the floor rolling the teleprompter so the talent could read, and we'd also put the graphics together for the newscast. You just try to springboard from that knowledge and understanding. And again, it's just ask a lot of questions. Be committed to learning each and every day, even after you start your job, because it will change. We live in a time where nothing tomorrow is the same as it is today. Right. Everything has changed a little bit, whether you know it or not.
When it comes to going from a PA into, you said in a year you were directing things, was there a moment where you were really kind of like recognized and you were able to be thrust into that position, or did you have to kind of like dig and like fight for, getting into the directorial role?
To get the opportunity, you had to show the drive. You had to show that you were learning, and you did your best at what you had to do. And then people take notice. In that particular case, the senior director was looking for somebody on the weekends to just do production. You come back from lunch and you'd have lineups and different promos and different things, and there has to be a director that does it. Well, that's the first time that they'll allow somebody who's wanting to become a director to sit in the chair and make the calls. And the technical directors will school you, as it were, because if you call something wrong, they'll do it wrong on purpose, even though they know what's right, to show you what happens when you don't call it the right way. You get a chance to do it, and then you start learning from your mistakes, much like we've talked about. And then next thing you know, you feel more confident. Then with that confidence comes learning more, asking more, and then there's that first time that you get to sit in and direct weather, which there's not a lot of calls in weather. It's just a bump out and letting the weather guy talk. But the first time you get in that chair, the nerves go.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll never forget that day. So if you really wanted to say, is there a defining moment? The first time you're in a chair as a director on a live show is your nerves really are there, every bit of it. Just keep asking, keep doing. I sound like a broken record, but it really is about asking questions, being committed to what you do, finding what you love and what you don't like, and then just starting to carve out that path.
That's really a lot of what I was looking for, you know, what makes you stand out against other people, and I think you kind of answered that for me. It's the drive, it's the questions and the eagerness to learn, and I guess people recognize that.
Most definitely, and being a team player, you know, some people, you know, it's, you know, they call it stepping on toes or whatever, or making a big deal or saying the he said, she said. The idea is be part of the team. A quarterback can't throw a winning touchdown if the front line just lets the defense come through and tackle them. You need your whole team to make the play happen. Do everything you can to be a part of that. You're not always going to have teammates that you like or like everybody, and you got to find ways to still be professional and work through that. And those things will almost always be noticed. And those are the things that, at least myself, when I look to hire, is to see how well did they work with others in their previous positions. It goes back to high school. There are cliques, and then there are those that are you know, will cast people out. The idea is how well can you fit in.
That makes sense, and I was also wondering about the way you said that it usually works out, and people usually recognize that. Based on personal experience and different things I've heard, there are people in this industry who will use you, but there are also people who will build you up. And I was wondering if you could speak to that a little bit.
If you know the scope and you ask the questions on what we're doing, what's the goal, you can usually head off problems like that. There are some people that will sit there and offer, hey, stick with me, you know, help me out, and I'll bring you up with me. And here, you only have to do all of my stuff and go pick up my laundry and do stuff.
Right.
Now, I've never experienced that, but you hear about it, and it does happen. Don't fall into those traps. Just be yourself. Do the best job you can. If the person that is your direct supervisor is one of those kind of people, maybe you move on. Maybe you find something else, or transfer to a different department if you don't see eye to eye. But the bigger thing is, again, know what you don't want to do, know what you want to do, and just keep going for it. You will find those people. You will find people that you get along with tremendously, and some that you butt heads with. Sometimes the people you butt heads with become your best allies down the road. The other thing I do recommend is do not burn any bridges.
So it's more of a self-evident type of thing, and then even if it's something like that, you don't want to burn the bridge. So you want to maintain a good relationship and kind of put your
take the high road. Don't blow up and say this is the end and storm off. Just say, you know, let's just agree to disagree and then move on, or do whatever you need to do. Don't cause a scene. I've seen it too many times. Somebody sees you yelling at another person in a truck compound. Next thing you know, you wonder why your phone stops ringing and you don't start getting calls from the crewers. And you find out that that person mentioned something about that to the crewer, and next thing you know, you're kind of on a, I won't say a banned list, but you're further down the totem pole. And crewers love to hire people that are right there. Every time they call, you answer your phone and you're available to work, and you just keep working. And the more you keep working, they sit there and say, hey, I can trust this person. I'm hearing great feedback about this person. Every time I crew them, I get nothing but good feedback, and they take the vast majority of what I need. And so every time, you're going to be one of the first calls to work the next job. Now, for those that are looking for the corporate positions, whether it be in television news or an ad agency, that's a little different. But when it comes to crewing agencies and for live broadcasts and stuff like that I'm around, the better off you are in answering your phone and being available and then just performing, the more your phone's going to ring. I know people that work year-round as freelance people, and they have more work than they can handle. Their phone keeps ringing, and they actually have to start prioritizing. Understand that there are different things. There are W-2 jobs where you're actually working for the corporation or working for that company. And then there's freelance. Freelance has a lot of opportunities with it, but it can also be very difficult because the only person that's going to go out there and get you work is yourself.
Right.
It's not like you start a job and you just go report 9 to 5 every day. You have to keep looking and keep answering your phone and keep getting parts and get on those crews. And you're going to have those doors that say no, or those periods where your phone doesn't ring. Know which one it is that you want. Maybe try a little bit of both. But it also depends on, do you want to be a camera op? For me, I love sports, so live sports makes sense. My background was in auto racing when I left television news. So I did television news to auto racing to commercials to just regular production and post-house stuff. I've been an editor. I've been a director. I've been a production manager. I mean, I've done a lot of different things. And I can tell you that what I do right now is probably one of the most fulfilling that I've done. I think that's why I want to stay with it.
When it comes to honing in on what you want to do, personally, I wanted to get into the video editing scene, and you said you worked in a post house. I was wondering about your experience with that and what you could tell me personally about that.
As far as editing goes?
Yeah.
Don't do it. No, I'm kidding. It's a stepping stone. It's a wonderful outlet for creativity. A good editor, a fast editor, they're well sought after. Down here in Atlanta, the Weather Channel is always hiring people to do those 10 worst storms, or post houses are looking for people to put together anything from corporate videos to, I've done national commercials. I've done training videos. I've done Lifetime Achievement Awards, all as editors. And then when you understand it, and you can help your producer, or you become a producer editor where you're doing both, there's a lot of satisfaction in the final product. And there's a lot of different opportunities. I mean, look at YouTube. Everybody that's out there that puts something up on YouTube is an editor in some fashion. Figure out what you like, or some of your passions, whether it be in sports or mountain climbing or cooking, whatever it is, the tricks and how to use the different softwares, Adobe Premiere and the Final Cuts that used to be around. And I think it's still around some, but I think almost everybody in the industry is doing Premiere now for the most part.
Okay.
Is just get as proficient as you can, get as fast as you can, learn some tricks, look at layering, look at many different things. But the bigger thing is it has to be something that you really enjoy. Inevitably, you're going to be asked to edit something that will bore you, and you will have no interest. If you're interested in it, you will do the best job you can. If you have no interest in it, you will probably fall short of what your own goals are. Find a way to be interested in whatever it is. And I had that with restaurant stuff until I started looking at these careers that people were doing, and I thought, wow, they've gone through a lot. Look at what they've done, and I want to tell that story. Editors are almost a thankless job sometimes, though, so people don't realize that it takes a lot of effort to do that.
Definitely. Talking about editing, I heard you talk about production and editing in a sort of dual role. Could you tell me about that and maybe your experience with that, or maybe like what you've seen from that?
Well, a producer editor, and I can give you several examples, but one in particular is if you're tasked with putting together a Lifetime Achievement Award, and I did one for Truett Cathy. He is the founder of Chick-fil-A, which down here is like the fast food. Everybody loves Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A is good.
And I didn't know anything about him when I was asked to do it. So then I started researching who he was, and I started learning about him, and you know, he had this degree in food prep and stuff like this, and he opens this little restaurant, and the story just keeps growing and growing, and then there's a fire, and it's almost like watching a VH1 behind the music. You find the story within the story, and you just get vested in it. But when you're a producer editor, it's up to you to find all your assets, the video pieces, the audio clips, or find ways to get them. Is there a hole in it of the story that you want to tell, and you have to go out there and find it? Interview somebody, like interviewing me, or maybe I need to interview you to get that piece of the puzzle. You come up with all your pieces, and then you also put them together. When you're producing and editing the same piece, obviously, you control the narrative. You control the direction it's going to go, but you also are responsible for making sure that you get all those pieces to do it. So there's more responsibility, there's more leeway, but it's also easier to put it together. The opposite would be if you have a producer and you're just the editor, you don't have to worry about the other stuff. You just have to figure out what's the best way to make it shine based on what they're giving me and the story they're telling me to put together. That's done through layering or motion graphics or some 3D effects and different things. So you take your craft and you mold it the best you can around whatever the producer is giving you. And there's obviously both different ways. You know, if you're editing a national commercial, you're given a shot list and you just have to pick out the best ones, or a producer has given you that. It's almost cookie cutter at that point.
Right.
Or maybe you want to edit for Spielberg. Maybe you want to do major motion pictures. Right. Or maybe you want to do motion graphics, one frame at a time. An editor of mine used to edit an auto racing show he and I did together for 3 years. Decided when we stopped doing that show that he wanted something different. And he went back to school and he got into motion graphics. And he's now working out on movies doing motion graphics, that one frame at a time, that incredible stuff that's going to be shown in movies. And I'm so happy for him, but he spent a number of years learning something new, a new craft within a craft. And he was a fantastic editor. But he said, you know what? There's more. And he went the other direction. That goes back to find out what you want to do, what you really enjoy, and then just keep experiencing as much as you can.
That was very inspirational. Thank you for that.
No, thank you, Kevin, because Kevin did an awesome job. He and I had a lot of late nights finishing a racing show that had to make air the next day, and there's a lot of pride when you can sit back or sit in your living room and see a show that you produced live airing, or even commercials or a corporate video shown in front of an entire political venue, or even a rock concert. The videos that are playing in the screens next to your favorite bands at a baseball game that are playing in the jumbotrons or on the little monitors. I mean, as an editor, you could end up doing things that you've never even really thought of.
That's definitely an aspect of the industry that I'm very attracted to, just being able to work in so many different mediums and different areas of life. Looking back over your career, what kind of impact would you say choosing to work in this specific industry made on your life?
Due to the different jobs that I've done, I've seen things and I've been to places that I would have never gone to or had the opportunity. Being a part of a traveling dirt race series, the premier race series that raced on dirt tracks all across America, I got a chance to travel, and I was in a different city every weekend during race season. Oh. So getting a chance to be in the middle of Wyoming and seeing antelope on the side of the road, you don't see that when you live in Ohio and in Toledo. Getting asked to pull the trailer from one city to the next and rising the mountains and then seeing the Great Salt Lake open up before you. You get to see this country like you never would. That's something I'll never forget. I've been to cities and states and seen things that I never, ever would have. I'm getting ready. I just came back from Philadelphia, working the National League Championship Series, and was just asked if I would work the World Series. So I'm going back to Philadelphia tomorrow, and it'll be my third World Series in 5 years. There are things that you just take in. You just say, how am I the senior replay tech for the World Series? It makes you smile, and it's just a culmination of all those things that you've done over your career, the asking of the questions. But the bigger thing is just enjoying yourself and putting forth the best you that you can. Probably the most memorable experience I've had is you've heard of a gentleman by the name of Jerry Springer, I bet.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
I had a newscast when I was a director that turned out better than I expected it to. It was a last minute, things were changing kind of a thing, and I didn't think anything of it. But we got through the show really well. I didn't know anything about it, but you can submit shows for awards. And the station offered to pay for one show for everybody. So I was asked, would I submit that show? And I said, sure, I don't know anything. I don't understand the whole process at the time. So I did, and I got nominated for an Emmy Award. Went to the Emmys, and I don't know how, but God blessed, I won an Emmy for directing. It was presented to me by Jerry Springer.
Wow.
So I will never, ever, ever forget it.
That's amazing. So, what was the name of the show?
It was for a 6 p.m. newscast, and the category was Outstanding Individual Achievement in a Newscast for Director.
Okay.
And basically, it's voted on by your peers.
Right.
That's the part that means the most to me. It's voted on by people at other stations and other markets that say, hey, this was very well done. This could have been a disaster, and listen to how calm they are. Or as an editor, look at the way they layered this and told this story with everybody sort of Ken Burns baseball. He does so much with so little, and everybody's just like, wow. And it's stuff like that when somebody else looks at your work and says, wow, that's what really matters. It's not about the paycheck other than to make sure you have a roof over your head and there's food. TV can be thankless. The pay isn't as good as maybe some other things if you're not in front of the camera. It has its moments. You will be at a spot where you say, I need to make more money. Or how do I make more money? How do I climb this food chain faster? How do I do this? How do I do? But the big thing is you just got to keep going. If you love it, keep going. I only won one statue. The gentleman I work with at the ballpark's got about 70. So
one is more than most people can even dream of.
It's all about being recognized by your peers and who you are. I don't think you need an award to do that.
Right.
I think you can do that yourself. Just hearing somebody come back to you saying, hey, the client says that they can't believe you were able to get that done in that short amount of time, and they're so happy with it. That, to me, is an Emmy Award every time. And, in fact, I take those over Emmys. It's just about doing the best you can, and we all just want to be recognized, right?
Definitely.
For our work.
Yeah.
This podcast, I hope those that listening will recognize the effort you did in researching and finding me and doing the stuff that you do. And each and every person out there, just keep driving. Just keep going. You're at the beginning, and it's a nice long road. See where it's going to go. And whatever you do, just keep your eyes open and enjoy the ride.
Thank you for ending it on that note. I just wanted to say thank you for your time and for considering this interview. I've been speaking with George Martin, the senior replay technician at Major League Baseball. On behalf of my audio engineer, Russ Gronbach, I am Dominic Serrato.
This has been the Professionals Podcast by Music Business Technology and Broadcast Media Technology students. Join us next time on Outcast OCCR, Owens Community College Radio.